Good morning. It's that wonderful time. Thank you for coming. It's Friday. Did you know that? Just so everybody knows. I always knew when it was Sunday because the fat paper came. But now I read it digitally, so I don't even know when it's Sunday. I'm so happy you're here because we have Jan Tarnowski, Executive Director of Bridging Hope, which was formerly Rate Response. And I realize that's not a wonderful, uplifting topic, but it is so important. Um, Jan is the Executive Director, and she is, if I can read my notes, which the fold was right in the middle of it. Bridging Hope is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the supporting of survivors of sexual violence and promoting community education and prevention. Over the course of her professional career, Jan has worked in a variety of capacities, both within and outside social services, consistently focusing on advocacy, support, and systems change. Her work has spanned direct client services, program development, organizational leadership, reflecting a deep commitment to trauma-informed care and community collaboration. Jan joined Bridging Hope 8 years ago and has had multiple roles, but moved into the role of Executive Director 3 years ago. Jan is married to Jeff for 31 years. She has a married daughter on active duty in the Air Force in Utah, and I'm sure your favorite person is the 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She also has a 24-year-old son who recently graduated with his master's degree from the University of North Georgia. Please welcome Jen Tarnowski.
Well, welcome to all of you for being here, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to come and talk to you and share a little bit more about my passion. With our name change, we made the name change because we really wanted to talk about and share with the community really the mission of our agency and the work that we do, which is Bridging Hope. Some of the work we can do can be really hard. Some of it can be heavy. But the majority of what we do is truly giving people hope. So I'll tell you a little bit about our organization, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions, so I'll probably stop much quicker than some speakers do. But tell you a little bit about who we are as an agency. So we are a nonprofit, just like Mary Bob said. We serve 6 counties. Our home base is here in Hall County. About half of the folks that we work with are from Hall County. So we have the counties that we serve: Dawson, Forsyth, Habersham, Lumpkin, Hall, and White counties. So we serve a pretty big area. And so kind of like what Mary Bob said, our agency is to work with anybody who is 13 and up. Our biggest goal is to prevent things from happening. We don't want to have to serve individuals after something has happened. We want to prevent that. So for me, that was a huge passion of mine when I came into the agency. And Pat, from way back long before I was there, Pat was in the trenches at our agency serving. When Pat was there, and we were just talking about this, there was the executive director and some volunteers. We have grown now to we have 15 full-time staff. We have 6 contract educators and 8 contract nurses. And we're big not because lots of things are happening more, but we are big because we are doing outreach and education to let the community know what's going on and how can we prevent these things from happening. So a little bit about who we are. My ultimate goal is to create a world where nobody has to experience any type of sexual violence, not even once. Coming to talk to a group who's retired, we have to start earlier, which is what we're doing. We're going into schools. So until that point, until we can have a community that is safe, that no violence is happening, we're going to go into the schools, which is what we're doing. A huge piece of what we're doing is going into the schools, starting in middle school, and talking about healthy relationships. Things have changed a lot from when I was young, from when all of us in the room were young. Who thinks things are the same? Is there anybody who thinks things are the same as what they were when we were growing up? Things are different. We need to provide that education. So, and it's not just students. It's in the community. It's parents. It's grandparents. Yesterday I was at Lumpkin County Sheriff's Office, and I asked the road officers, how many of you have heard about Bridging Hope and what we do? And how many have not? 3/4 of those police officers yesterday had never heard of us. That's a problem. So I was so excited in talking to my friend Glenda and then talking to Mary Bob and Justine and said, can I come talk? Can I come share? Because I'm really excitable. I'm like a little puppy. I say that all the time. I'm a puppy off a leash when I'm talking about our work. Because if I can prevent things from happening to one young person, to one teenager, to one 20-something-year-old person, it's worth every minute I'm going. All of you have families. It's important that you all know what we're doing and how we can prevent and keep our families safe. So that's a lot of what I want to talk about, is coming into the community, not just students, but you all have families and loved ones. We want to give information to you all, not only to keep you all safe, but you've got families you love, and we want to keep them safe as well. So until then, what are we doing? We're offering advocacy. People don't know what to do if something's happened. They don't have to know what to do. They can call us and say, Jen, what do we do? We can walk them through. Everything is free. We want to help them with medical care. People say, where do we go for medical care? We are the one agency, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We are the one agency in the 6 counties that will provide care after a sexual assault has happened. People will say, oh, I thought you go to the hospital. We work with the hospitals, but they send individuals to us now. And everybody's like, oh, that's a problem. We provide, that is our specialty. So it is a good thing, but we need to get word out to let people know where to go. Where do they go? To come to us, because we can provide that service. And there's no emergency room bills, there's no anything else. It's one-on-one quality care. So until we can have a location or a world that is free from sexual violence, we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening. So I'll tell you a little bit about this. And feel free, if you have questions as we go, it won't deter from me. Please feel free to ask. So who do we work with? Anybody 13 and up who's been experienced any type of violence. So that could be parents, grandparents, siblings, whoever that is, we want to be able to help them. Does not matter how long ago something happened. We had, last year we had a man come to us and he said, you know, I'm 55 years old, something happened to me when I was 5 and I never told anybody. I felt like it was my fault. And I said, great, you're not gonna get an exam, something happened 50 years ago, but we can provide you with support to begin that healing process. He said, after about 3 months with us, he sat down on the couch next to me and he said, Jen, with tears, I wish I wouldn't have waited 50 years. And I said, it's never too late, because when we all were growing up, nobody talked about things. It's never too late to start healing. It's never too late to get the support that you should have had years ago. So that's kind of what we're here for. All right, let me go through. All right, so I want to tell you a little bit about what our services are. And everybody can see this, correct? Okay. All of our services are free, and everything is confidential. We'll have people who say to us, well, I don't want so-and-so to know. They don't have to know. Everything is confidential unless they sign a release. I had somebody come into the office yesterday and wanted to talk to law enforcement about something that happened 3 years ago. And I said, if you'd like to sign a release, we'll be glad to do that. But I can't talk to anybody. So if I were talking to Mary Bob, I would say, and somebody said, hey, did you talk to Mary Bob today? I can't say who I've talked to or not. And so that gives everybody that sense of privacy that they deserve as they're beginning to heal. So let me tell you a little bit about, I think my thing paused. All right. Where's John? I froze. Okay, I'm going to go until he gets it. There we go. All right, can we go one more, John? I don't know why it's not working. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our 3 program areas and what we do. Am I moving around? Am I not doing something right? Oh, there. So now it's going. You show up and now it starts working, John. Were you messing with me? I think you were messing with me. Okay, tell me what I need to do. This is not. Okay, so let me tell you about our 3 programs because I want you to know what we're doing. The most important thing for me, our biggest focus, is prevention. So I'm going to go into the details about what our prevention education is. But we are going into the schools. We are going into middle schools. We are going to high schools. We are going into colleges to provide education. And I'll talk about the numbers of what we're doing to prevent these things from happening. Social media is crazy. It can be beneficial, but it can also be detrimental. And so we want to re-educate young people to know truly what is okay and what's not okay. And how to keep them safe. How many of you have children and or grandchildren? Just a show of hands. Okay. So this all applies to all of you. As a parent, as a grandparent, I want my children and my grandchildren to be safe. And so that's pretty much why I'm very, very passionate about doing this. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, but our second area of what we do is forensic medical services. We provide medical care free. It's also evidence collection that we do at our facility, and I'll show you a picture about a little bit about what we do. And then advocacy and trauma recovery. If we can prevent something from happening, then we don't have to do the forensic medical care. Then we don't have to do the advocacy and trauma recovery. But until we can have that area, a county, or area, a region that is safe from sexual violence, we're going to continue to provide those services. So, prevention education. Did any of you, and I'll say up front, I did not, did any of you ever have education when you were in school about safety other than don't talk to the stranger in the creepy white van? Things have changed, and we go into our school system. So we are in Hall County schools, Gainesville City schools, and 4 of our other county schools in grades 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, providing education to all of the students. The only ones who don't go is if parents opt out, which makes me really sad, but they have to give parents the option. Almost 12,000 students last year we provided education to. 12,000. Pretty impressive. We are still trying to get into Forsyth County schools, but we have added new private schools. We are in Lakeview Academy, all of the private schools. Anybody who's willing to have us come in, will go in. And right now, we've not charged any schools for any services. That's my job as the director, is to raise the funds to ensure that all of these children can get this education for free. We're not going to charge the school districts for it, because this is important. Students have to know this. So think about that. 12,000 students just this year who received education. On college campuses, almost 4,000 students. We were talking about that beforehand. Mary Bob and I were talking about that. How important that is. We know what goes on. How many of you, we were talking about the paper. How many of you read the paper? Whether it's digital or whether it's a physical paper. How many of you have seen something, and it's usually every week, multiple times a week, have seen that something is happening to a child or to a teenager or a young adult? It's hard to read. We want to prevent that. That's my goal. I want to get out and talk to as many people as I can. I get really excited. People are like, Jen, you do hard work. I'm like, but it's such a passion. If we can prevent that from happening, that's incredible. So almost 4,000 students. So just those two groups, we're looking at 16,000 individuals. And that's not counting all the places like law enforcement. I was at law enforcement yesterday and Tuesday, and the opportunity to talk to you all about what we're doing. All right. I'm normally great with technology. I am not. And then the last part of our prevention ed is coming out to the community. We will go to churches. We will go to any group who's willing. We have Smart Response Parent Program. We have Smart Response for grandparents. We have community members. We have law enforcement. Anytime that we can go out and talk to somebody about how do we keep our kids safe, and that's a little different. I'm not doing that presentation today. I want to tell you just a little bit about what we're doing as a whole. If you are connected to a group or a congregation that would like to say, hey, could we do this? We were just at First United Methodist. Any group who's willing, we would love to come and share. And sometimes our educators are a little calmer. They're not like excitable like I am, but they're great information to have. All right, let me tell you a little bit about our other programs, and then I want to ask some questions to you. Okay, can you all see the picture on the left? Okay. This is our forensic medical services. Can you see it okay? Okay. That's what our little, in our office, we have one little medical suite, and we've had some of our friends here who have seen that. If you had a family member, would you rather be in an emergency room or here? Thank you. I was afraid. I was like, oh no, I hope nobody says the emergency room. We pride ourselves on having the best care in, I would say, the state. The nurses that we have are amazing. We provide amazing one-on-one care. After something has happened, people don't know what their options are. They can call us 24/7. We have nurses who are 24/7. The issues that were happening at the hospital was these were ER nurses, and we know how busy the hospital is here. If we had a patient who came in who needed an exam to get their health check to collect evidence, that nurse would have to ferret out all of her other patients. There was a huge delay, and then we would have our patients waiting in the emergency room, and somebody would go up to them and say, oh, Mary Bob, what are you here for? And that happened when I was with one of those patients. And I said, oh, we just have to get some things checked, because nobody wants to have to explain what I'm here for. So our medical care is amazing. We do forensic medical exams, collecting of evidence, providing medical care to prevent the development of STDs if they've been exposed to that. We also do, and our nurses, if anybody is really interested in the medical information, our nurses can give you a lot more medical information. But our nurses are the ones who started the pilot program for the state of Georgia, where a lot of times in intimate partner domestic violence situations, somebody gets strangled, but they don't die, but there's been some type of pressure. We are now one of 7 sites in the state that are providing these exams for law enforcement. It's fascinating. Our nurses have educated me so much. They said, If there's been any contact to somebody's neck, up to a year later, they could possibly have a stroke. And so bringing those individuals to us, getting that medical care, if they need follow-up, sending them to the hospital, is amazing. But it's pretty cool to think that we are one of 7 in the state. So you are here in this community. We're kind of doing cutting-edge care at our facility, which is pretty fascinating to me. And then follow-up testing and treatment. We want to make sure somebody's physical health is good. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3 areas, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the impact that we're having, because I want you to know the full perspective of what our agency is, but then know what a difference we're making, and then opportunities to perhaps get involved and volunteer or learn more about what we're doing. So our 3rd area is advocacy and trauma recovery. The most important thing for us is if something has happened, to walk somebody through, what do they do? Before I had started here, I had said, well, how does somebody know what to do if something's happened? People don't know, and you don't need to know. You just need to know how to contact somebody who can walk you through what all your options are. And that's kind of what we're here to do, is to walk somebody through all their options. We'll support somebody, we'll walk them through, give them all their options. If somebody is, and I think Mary Bob and I were talking about getting law enforcement involved. Statistically speaking, in the US, about 20% of people who've had something happen report to law enforcement, because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of, I don't know what to do. At our agency, because we provide that support, we have about a 75% reporting rate. And again, the hope is if people are choosing to report, it's going to make our community safer. And that's super important for us. And then counseling. We do, I think Pat was talking about having been a counselor before. Pat, would you be interested to know that we have 2 full-time counselors, we have 3 contract counselors, and we have 2 master's level interns and 1 PhD intern providing counseling. And we still have a wait list. The need is there because people are recognizing there's an opportunity to heal. And that's so important for me. So I'm trying to support them. They're doing really cool things. They're doing equine therapy. They're working with horses. We don't own horses. We just work with some agencies that have horses. So we're doing equine therapy. It's amazing. The results and the healing that we've seen have been absolutely tremendous. Okay, so what I want to do is tell you a little bit about the impacts. Why are we doing what we're doing? How is that impacting the community? And I had just updated, poor John, at last minute, I'm like, John, I've got to update these, so thank you, John, for your patience with this. We literally just finished our fiscal year, so some of our numbers are not totally in. But to give you an idea, we're growing. Not necessarily because things are happening more. Rather, I get the opportunity to come talk to wonderful, amazing people like you all, who are spreading the word about what we're doing so that if individuals need us or if we can do prevention education, we have that opportunity. So I want you to take a look at this. Last year, exams, we were at 107. Now we're at 140. Individuals served, we were at 745 last year. We're at 953 this year. Services provided, we were at 15,000. We're over 18,000. I haven't even received the final number because the girls are still entering. They have been slammed this last week providing services. Counseling sessions, we were at about 1,700 and we're over 1,950. The education numbers that we talked about, we were about 16,000 individuals who have been impacted. I have 16,000 plus these extra 1,000, so 17,000 individuals that we have impacted this year. That is why I get up and do what I do every year. That is why I'm so excited and passionate to share about what we're doing, because out of those 17,000, if we can prevent and have this number go from 953 down, not because we're not out in the community, but because we're preventing things, that's huge. And that's what we really want to do, is prevent these things from happening. So here's why this is important. We want our communities to be safer. Things are not like they were in the 50s and 60s. The internet has had good and bad. Our kids and grandkids are exposed to things that we were never exposed to. It used to be the creepy white van because that's what you'd worry about. Now, with the internet, unfortunately, some of the people who want to do bad things are coming into our kids and our grandkids' lives through social media. I don't have my phone up here, but through social media. It's making it easier. So it's our job to go in and educate those children, to educate parents, to educate grandparents about what can we do, what are things that we can be aware of to keep our community safer. Our agency is here to fill that critical need for services. It's very surprising when people hear that we are the only place in our 6-county region that provides those services. Was there anybody here who knew that? How many of you did not know that? Okay, that's kind of what I thought. And you're no different than law enforcement. Law enforcement yesterday, 75% of them, the road officers had no idea. They're like, well, we just take them up to the Lumpkin ER. And I said, if they need to go to the emergency room for emergency room services, do that. But if not, please bring them to us. We want to work that 140. We want those numbers to be up if things are happening. We don't want them up because it's happening more, but we want people to know that this is who we are. And long-term trauma. I bet every single one of you in here knows somebody who had something that happened to them. The trauma that can hold on, like that man who was 55 who came to us, is tremendous. But if we can give people the opportunity for healing, if you hear from your children or grandchildren that something has happened, you can say, you know, there are places that can help. We want to prevent that long-term trauma because then our whole communities are safer. So people say, why do you do that? That's so hard. And the name change has helped tremendously because having a name rape response is heavy. But that's what the agency was doing 36 years ago. Now we are giving people hope. We are giving people the opportunity to heal. And it's an incredible, incredible gift. So when I talked to Mary Bob, it was, you know, how could people get involved? How could people, you know, support what we're doing? There's everything and anything. People can get involved. Some people would say, I do not want to ever answer that crisis line if that's coming in, because we have some volunteers who do that. But then we have volunteers who make quilts. We have people who will drop off, will actually go pick up things. They'll say, hey, I can pick up, when I'm having some groceries delivered, I can pick up some bottles of water or some snacks for your clients. There's a lot of things that folks can do to help. We have a few volunteers who grade our tests from what the kids are doing in schools, because we do a pre-test and post-test. So there's lots of things. If somebody says, hey, I want to help make a difference. I want to keep those kids safe. I want to find out more about what you're doing. I would be honored and privileged to invite, kind of like what I did with Mary Bob, come see our facility. We're 10 minutes down the road. If you ever were interested in learning more about kind of what that looks like, what is it that you do, I would be glad to come here. I've come here before, talked to Justine, talked to Glenda, talked to Mary Bob. I would be honored to talk to you more about kind of what we're doing. Even knowing, for you all knowing about us is making a difference. If you have a group who would be interested in learning more about what our prevention work is, we would be honored to do that. We're doing hard work, but we are changing lives and we are saving lives. And I can't do that without all of you knowing about what we are and what we're doing. I know it's a heavy topic, but the prevention is key. I want to know, what questions do you all have about what we're doing? And I was kind of right on time. I wanted to be at 30 minutes so you had time to ask. Okay, the mics are coming around.
How are you handling the transgender thing that's going on with women's sports and all that?
So the only thing that matters to us is, I don't have to address that in terms of with the individuals. If somebody comes to us and says, I was sexually assaulted, we're going to provide an exam and we're going to provide support. I think there's a lot of issues that people have. You know, I think having issues with having people identify different ways. For us, we don't ask any questions about anything, because to us, it doesn't matter. If somebody comes to us and says, I've been sexually assaulted, our goal is we're going to provide medical care just like we do to any person, male or female, who walks in.
How do you handle it with the students? When you go to the grade school, transgender is being blown off. I mean, they're letting boys say they're girls and going into girls' locker rooms and all that.
What's that? Yeah, so, well, thankfully, that's not something, because we don't go into talking about like the sex ed piece. It's thankfully not an issue that we have to discuss or educate students on. What we're talking to students about when we go into the schools is, how do we keep ourselves safe? We talk about what the laws are regarding consent, but we don't have to ever go into any issues about talking about if somebody identifies as a girl or a boy, or how, you know, thankfully that's not an issue we have to handle at all. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Because we don't really have to, like, it doesn't come into play much at all, but it is a big concern for a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of concerns that are happening. Thankfully, what we are just focusing on is how do we prevent sexual violence from happening. And to us, sexual violence can happen to any person, and it can be perpetrated on by any person. Does that, I know it kind of doesn't answer your question, but does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Yes.
I appreciate your focus on education. We have here at LVE several hundred TV channels, and we have the unlimited internet that is glamorizing much of the activity that you are seeing problematic in our society. What do you tell young people today to prevent them from doing the same thing that they're seeing?
That's a great question. So in part of our education, when we talk to students and we talk to middle schoolers and high schoolers in college, we talk to them about the laws and what is consent. Because in an intimate relationship, it's important to have true, honest, open, and full consent. What's happening on the internet and in some of those movies is not consent. It's sexual violence. And so for us, a lot of what we do is explain to the kids and the young adults what consent is. Because there's a distorted view. We were talking before about because somebody is intoxicated does not give you free rein to do whatever you want to do to that person. That is not consent. So we're trying to demystify all of the things that technology and movies have glamorized. It has made it harder in our society today to be able to truly let young people understand what is consent. Because they're like, well, I saw that movie and they were doing all these things to that person, and that's not okay. And we're able to validate and say, no, look at the law. This is what consent is. And so when we go into schools, we point blank will say, and we were talking about to young men and young women, that that is not consent, that that is sexual assault, or that is rape. Because if they're believing everything they're seeing on social media, they're gonna think that this is okay, that this is an appropriate relationship, and it's not. It's a crime. So a lot of what we're doing now, we keep changing our education to make sure we're keeping up and using, like this year we added to our education program basically myths, and we are demystifying, like, okay, you've seen this meme on social media. This is why this is not true. This is a lie. And if you participate in any type of sexual activity under that guidance, that's a crime. And so it's not just to the girls, it's to the boys, it's to everybody to learn what is consent, what is not consent, and what is breaking the rules or the laws. And if you break the laws, we talk about it's the same thing of, if somebody drives and they're drunk and they hurt somebody, they're still breaking the laws. It doesn't matter if you didn't know that that's the law. You're breaking the law and there are consequences. And so the fact that we're able to hopefully give individuals more support to report their crimes, we had conversation with the newspaper and with law enforcement about that, is we want to support individuals to get word out, to say this is not okay. It's not okay that you hooked up with somebody when they were completely passed out. No, that's a crime. It's sexual assault, and you should be held accountable for that. So it's a hard thing to do when they have a phone and they have the internet 24/7 and they're looking at this and they're being desensitized. None of that was around when I was growing up. But now it's become normal. And so our education has gotten harder. But we're not going to stop. We're going to keep doing everything we can to educate young people, to educate those college students so that they know the truth and that it's not what's happening on TV is okay, because it's scary. I've had students who say to me, especially at college, I had some college students say, well, I thought that was okay. I saw that in a movie. I'm like, it's not okay. It's breaking the law. So anything that we have to do to kind of re-educate young people, but it's very, very difficult when social media and TV and movies are portraying that these things are okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
You mentioned that students can be opting out with parental. Have you noticed any change in the amount of students that are opting out? What percentage opt out?
Very, very small. And part of why we see it's a very small number is because we offer schools, we've thought through this. We're trying to make it, we're trying to have all those students come to us. We will offer a parent night where we will literally present the entire curriculum as to what we're going to say and what information we're going to give. Because sometimes parents are like, well, I don't want you saying that it's okay for my kids to have sex. And I said, well, we are not talking and giving permission. What we are talking about are the laws and how to keep those kids safe. We will be glad to give parents the full curriculum and let them see it. We were actually very fortunate to get it copyrighted during COVID, but we will give parents everything. If they want to call and ask questions, they can call and ask questions. If they want to come to a parent night where we're presenting, we can do that as well. By doing that and being fully transparent with every single thing that we're talking about, which is important to us, we have less and less parents who are opting out, which is wonderful. We do also, some homeschool groups or some other groups like that. We are also trying to get in and offer the education to those groups as well, because those kids have less exposure to things, and we want to make sure that they're not coming out of a homeschool situation and not having any of the education that we can offer. So we're willing to go, you tell me if there's a group who's interested, we will gladly take it and present to them as well. Pat?
Could you give us, excuse me, an example of like what you teach the kids? What do you teach them to recognize certain things?
So it's different every year, and again, if that's something that this group would like to do, or we could do it separately, even record it and put it on the channel, we can. In 6th grade, we talk about healthy boundaries, and we talk about what's okay and what's not okay, that it's okay for kids to say, you know what, I don't have to have access to my phone 24/7, because kids are attached to their phones. And it's okay to have friends who, if you don't reply immediately, you can take a shower and you can eat dinner with your family without being attached to your telephone. And if you have a person who's going to get upset with you because they can't reach you for those 45 minutes, maybe that's not a healthy boundary, because it's okay in our world to not have our phones attached to us, but our kids need that. And then as they get older in 7th grade, we start talking about what Georgia law is. And we talk about the age of consent and what consent looks like. That it's not okay for somebody to say, well, if you really loved me, you would kiss me. That's coercion. And so we teach the kids about what is consent and what is coercion. Not even talking about sex, but just even, if somebody wants to put their arm around you, they should ask for consent. And if you're not like, oh, absolutely, that would be great for you to hold my hand. To teach kids it's okay to say no. Even to say, you know what, it's okay if there's an adult, you don't have to be rude about it, but if there's an adult who makes you uncomfortable, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm gonna step back over here. Because with kids, it's 93% of the time that something is happening to them from somebody in their current inner circle. It's not the stranger in the creepy white van like I used to think it was. So then we talk about laws of consent, the laws and consent and what that looks like, and to help them understand what crimes are. Because, we use the example, if you go into a high school and I don't know if they're still using this example, but we say, some boys think it's funny, and it's a bad stereotype, but I'll say, you have football players who think they're funny and they're going to have a competition as to how many girls' butts they can touch in the day. Well, that's sexual battery, because you didn't consent. Did they touch an intimate body part? And we talk about an intimate body part, what that looks like. Did you say, yes, you can go ahead and do that? And it's no. So to teach the students that that's not okay and that's a crime, but to also teach, in this example, it's the football players, that that's a crime if you're committing that. It's not a funny joke. It's not okay, it's a crime. So, and then it's even identifying who is a trusted adult. And so when we talk about in the schools, we say, do you have a counselor? Do you have a parent? Do you have a grandparent? Because some of the students say, well, I can't talk to my parents, but I love my granny, she's the best. Then you know what? If you talk to granny and you say, hey, this person's making me feel uncomfortable, that you all then can be that support for them to get them healing. So yeah, and I can always go through, if that's something at some point we want to do, I can gladly share all the information that we talk about in the schools. Does that answer your question enough?
Oh,
okay.
And I did have another comment. Back in the 90s, we tried to go and give classes at the universities. We went to Brenau, Gainesville College, North Georgia College. All three said, there's no problem here. No, they wouldn't allow us to come and give a program because they had no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was stunning. Wow. And then there was one example I'd like to give. We just had the one executive director. She would go and meet, and you do meet the victims at the ER and she immediately went to the ER. The ER, that was a big step, that the ER would call her when they got a victim. And she was sitting with the victim when the victims, and then the victim was taken into a exam room, and then and Terry couldn't go in, but she was sitting and waiting, and the parents came in. And so the nurse came out, and asked the parents to come into the room, and the father was fuming. It was a teenage girl. She'd been raped by her boyfriend, and the father was furious. And Terry stood right up to him, and she said, I just want you to know one thing. The first thing you say when you walk in that room is going to stay with your daughter for the rest of her life. And it just changed everything, because he was ready to step in that room and yell at her. Her fault. It still is, it's the girl's fault.
Right.
And he didn't. He listened to Terry, and he just went in open and loving. But I thought that was what, 30 years ago. It's always stuck with me how powerful that was, and the personal support that you give. Thank you. I
Thank
can't
you.
believe the growth. I just can't believe it. It's wonderful.
And thank you, because that is so important for us, is to be able to provide not only the support when people have had something happen to them, but also the support for families, for the parents, for the grandparents, for the siblings, to say, how do I navigate this? Because a lot of that, exactly what you said, is what we share with parents is, anything that you're saying, they've already thought. And they've already said, I shouldn't have gone on that date, and I shouldn't have done that. And my answer now is, no, the person should not have hurt you. I don't care what happened to that. Were they good choices? Probably not. But an assault wouldn't have happened if somebody didn't commit that crime. And so the education needs to be to everybody, to understand the full scope of where the crime and where the responsibility lays. And for so long it was always, it's the girl's fault because they shouldn't have been wearing that. And so or they shouldn't have been in that position. And it's like, well, we use the example of, so if a man's walking with his wallet in his back pocket and somebody steals his wallet, nobody says, well, it's the man's fault for putting it in his back pocket. They say, well, that guy shouldn't have stole that. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is really reframe. And, we use the example too, like if a hurricane's coming, you can minimize the damage. And that's what we want to do for people, is minimize the risk factors to prevent that. But we want to assign blame for the person who commits crime. And it's not all men who commit crimes. We've seen women who commit crimes. And so for us, people are like, do you not like men? I'm like, no, I love men. Men are wonderful. I said, I don't like people who commit crimes, who hurt other people. That's what I'm not okay with. So the more education we can do, the information that we can do, and to really focus on what can we do to prevent these things from happening? How can we raise awareness? How can, I would love support from you all to help me get connected so I can share the mission and the work that we're doing. The more awareness there is in the community, the more likely it is that we can prevent these things from happening, because I can't change what's happening on TV. I can only educate people and parents and grandparents and children to do what we can to keep them safe.
Thank you. What an important topic.
Thank you.
Many of us grew up in an era where the talk at home was excruciating with very little information. So I am so glad that
Thank you.
students have a chance to be informed. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh, I have information in the back. I do have, there is information on the back cabinet that are, I don't have them here, but that are RAC cards and business cards. If you ever have any questions about what we're doing, or, hey, you have a group who you'd like to share, we'd love to be able to come present, please let me know. I will be glad to come here. It is an honor and a privilege to come to LVE. So anytime I can get a chance to come see my friends who are here and come talk to you a little bit more and answer questions, or if you're interested in seeing our facility, we're 10 minutes up the road. I'd be honored to have any of you come and just learn more about what we're doing. So thank you all so much.